Okay, let's go ahead and talk about partnership liquidation some more. And we need to discuss what's referred to as a cash distribution plan. Recall that previously we ran through an example of a schedule of safe payments, and just to sort of recap, we had the ABC partnership. The ABC partnership had $40,000 in cash, $460,000 in other non-cash assets. On the credit side, they had $20,000 in liabilities, and A, B, and C had the capital balances as indicated there. And again, with the schedule of safe payments, what we did, looking at the table, we had our beginning balances, and we assumed that all of the non-cash assets were worthless. So we took a $460,000 loss on those non-cash assets, and that $460,000 loss was allocated in the partner's profit sharing ratio. So $138,000 was allocated to A, $46,000 allocated to B, and $276,000 allocated to C. And after doing that, we bring our balances down. We've still got $40,000 in cash. We have $20,000 in liabilities. The partner's capital balances, A has $12,000, B has $34,000, and C has been wiped out. C now has a deficit capital balance of $26,000. Again, we assumed that C is individually insolvent, so C will not be making good on that deficit, and instead C's deficit is allocated to A and B, and it's allocated in A and B's relative profit sharing ratios, a 3-to-1 ratio. So A absorbs 19,500 of that deficit, B absorbs 6,500. And as a result of this, A is now wiped out. A has a deficit of 7,500, B has a positive capital balance of 27,500. Again, we assume A is individually insolvent, so B will have to absorb A's deficit. And in the end, again, we've got $40,000 in cash, we have $20,000 in liabilities. The other $20,000 can be paid out to partner B. Okay, now the reason C was wiped out first is that despite his large capital balance of $250,000, he was at the greatest risk if there were losses, since he had to bear 60% of any losses. At the other extreme, B, who had the smallest capital balance, ended up being the only one left with a positive capital balance, since although she had the lowest capital balance, she also had the least exposure to any losses. So basically, the likelihood that a partner is going to receive any cash is based on both his or her relative capital balance as well as his or her exposure to potential losses. So to measure the strength of a partner's position, we're going to look at the relationship between their capital balance and their exposure or sensitivity to losses. And we'll create a measure referred to as loss absorption power, which is the partner's capital balance divided by their profit share. So partner A, with a $150,000 capital balance and bearing 30% of any losses, has a $500,000 loss absorption power. And what that means is if there's a $500,000 loss, A will bear 30% of that, or $150,000, and that will exactly wipe out partner A's capital balance. So A can absorb a loss of up to $500,000. Similarly, B has a loss absorption power of 80,000 divided by 0.1, or $800,000. So it would take an $800,000 loss to wipe out B's capital balance. Finally, C has a loss absorption power of $416,667. His capital balance of $250,000 divided by his profit and loss share of 0.6. Now, again, looking at the example we just ran through, we saw that initially we assumed a $460,000 loss on those non-cash assets. And looking at these loss absorption powers, we see that sort of fits in. That $460,000 loss wiped out C. He couldn't absorb a $460,000 loss. On the other hand, both A and B have loss absorption powers above $460,000, so they were able to absorb that loss. A was almost wiped out, while B was still in pretty strong shape. Now, since B was in the strongest position, as measured by the loss absorption power, B was the first one to get paid. Again, in our example, B got that first $20,000. So B is going to be paid any cash that is available until his loss absorption power is reduced to the level of the next highest partner. And again, that was partner A. So if B is paid $10,000, what happens to his loss absorption power? Okay, the new loss, again, previously the loss absorption power was $800,000 as indicated at the top of this page. If he's paid $10,000, his loss absorption power drops to $700,000, a drop of $100,000. Now let's go ahead and look at the relationship here. A loss absorption power equals the partner's capital balance divided by his or her profit share. Now let's let CH stand for change, or change in. So if the loss absorption power equals the capital balance divided by the profit share, then the change in the loss absorption power equals the change in capital divided by the profit share. Rearranging, we can have the change in capital equals the change in loss absorption power times the profit share. So if we want to see B's loss absorption power drop by $300,000, and again we do, we want to see B's loss absorption power drop from $800,000 down to A's level of $500,000, then we need to see B's capital fall by $300,000 times 0.1, or $30,000. And that's going to happen by paying out $30,000 to partner B. After doing that, B's loss absorption power will be $50,000 in capital divided by 0.1, or $500,000, which is equal to A's level. At that point, A and B are in an equally strong position, and they will both start receiving payments. They'll both receive payments until their loss absorption powers drop to the level of partner C. So we'll give A and B enough cash to lower their capital balances until their loss absorption powers drop to $416,667. After that, all three partners are in an equally strong position, and they all start receiving payments. So let's go ahead and go through this cash distribution plan example. And again, we've got this little two-part table. We have 3 columns for the partner's loss absorption powers. We have 3 columns for the partner's capital balances. And here's our beginning situation. And again, what we want to do is with our first stage payments, we want to see the partner with the highest loss absorption power, partner B. We want to see his loss absorption power drop to the level of the next highest partner, partner A, at $500,000. To determine how much of a cash payment that implies, we take partner B's change in loss absorption power, $300,000, multiply that by partner B's profit share, and that implies a $30,000 decrease in partner B's capital balance, which means a $30,000 payment to partner B. As a result of this, our new balances, A's loss absorption power is still $500,000, B's loss absorption power has been reduced to $500,000, and C is still bringing up the rear at $416,667. The capital balances of A, B, and C are as indicated, $150,000, $50,000, and $250,000. And again, at this point, A and B are in an equally strong position, so now we're going to start giving A and B money until their loss absorption power drops to the level of partner C. So we need to see now a decrease in the loss absorption power of A and B of $83,333. That'll bring them down to C's level of $416,667. So again, what does that imply about the changes in the capital balances, or the payments made to partners A and B? Again, we take the change in the loss absorption power for partner A, multiply that by A's profit and loss share, and we get a payment to A of $25,000. Similarly for B, an $83,333 drop in loss absorption power multiplied by B's profit share of 10% implies a payment of $8,333. So sort of recapping where we are up until now. The first stage payments, the first $30,000 that we pay out, is all going to be paid out to partner B. At the second stage, when we're giving money to A and B, adding up those two payments to A and B, 25,000 plus 8,333, that means that the next $33,333 will be paid out to A and B in their profit sharing ratio, and so in a 3-to-1 ratio. After we get through paying out that $33,333, our balance is now, all three partners have a loss absorption power of 416,667, so they're all in a equally strong position in terms of their capital balance relative to their loss exposure, and they've got capital balances of 125,000, 41,667, and $250,000. And not wanting to beat a dead horse here, notice that the profit sharing ratio, 3 to 6, is now equal to their capital balance ratio, 125,000 to 41,667 to 250,000. And again, that's a 3 to 6 ratio. So we've equalized the relationship between capital and loss exposure for all three partners, which means that any additional money that gets paid out is going to be paid out to all three partners in their profit sharing ratio. So again, to interpret this, the first $30,000 all goes to partner B. The next $33,333 gets split between A and B in their profit sharing ratio, a 3-to-1 ratio. Finally, any remaining money gets split between all three in their profit sharing ratio of 3 to 6. And again, the advantage of this cash distribution plan is that every time $1,000 becomes available for payment to the partners, we have a schedule saying who's going to get that $1,000. Again, the first $30,000 all goes to B. The next $33,333 gets split between A and B. Anything after that gets split between all three partners. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the presentations for this semester. I hope you all had a rewarding semester in this course, and best of luck in whatever you do. It's been a pleasure.